In the early evening of March 21, 1936, the Peoria Fire Department responded to a call of a fire that broke out in the Gothic First Congregational Church on the corner of Monroe and Hamilton. As the moon rose in the night, the sky of Peoria glowed with the ominous yellow-orange tint of tragedy. Throughout the downtown area, the air was tinged with the distinctive smell of hotly burning wood. A crowd quickly gathered as firefighters from throughout the city battled the intense blaze. Within a matter of hours, though, the 50-year-old church fell in upon itself. Only 2 artifacts survived the fire, a bell and a commemorative plaque honoring the ministry of the Reverend E. Frank Howe. The grief was intense and deeply felt. A place where weddings and funerals were conducted, where the sacraments were celebrated, a place made holy by prayers and sermons, where hymns of glory were sung, where tears had been shed and laughter echoed, was now preserved only in memory, gone, forever gone. 3 weeks later, on April 10th, the congregation elected a committee of 36 to guide the church in the coming months. They had many decisions to make over the next weeks. 75 years later, the memories of that night are still vivid to members of First Federated Church.
I was asleep in my own bed, and my father and mother came in and said, "We've got to go see the fire." I thought that was kind of a stupid idea, but okay. So we went to see the fire. We lived on Randolph Avenue, which gave you a wonderful view of the fire. I wondered after, why in the world don't we just stay here, because we can see it pretty well. But we went to the fire.
Let me start on Saturday afternoon. I was at church in the junior choir with my cousin Harriet Vance, Parkhurst. After choir practice, we would always walk past Hunter's hot dog stand, get some popcorn, walk up the hill to 100 Randolph, where the Vances lived. And I was staying there all night. I guess we were called out of bed, and I don't recall the time, but anyway, they had a porch upstairs over their porch downstairs, so we went out on the porch and watched the fire.
I gotta be honest with you, I was disappointed because my brother Harry was in Methodist Hospital having had a mastoid operation, and he was sitting center row looking out the window at this fire. So I was a little disappointed. That's not what you're supposed to do when a church burns down, but when you're 6 years old, your perspective in life is a little different.
It's an immense fire, Frosty. It was well on its way by that time. The roof was burning, everything was burning. That house, or that church, was filled with woodwork. I hardly remember that, but it burned very, very well.
The story of First Congregational Church began over 100 years before that fateful night in 1936. On December 28, 1834, 10 Congregationalists and 3 Presbyterians organized the Main Street Presbyterian Church under what was known as the Plan of Union of 1801, a mission agreement between Presbyterianism and Congregationalism. This new congregation met in the courthouse, which was nothing more than a humble log cabin on the banks of Lake Peoria at the foot of Liberty Street. Moses Pettengill, Dr. Enoch Cross, and Joshua Aiken were ordained elders, charged with the spiritual oversight of the fledgling congregation. They called their first pastor, the Reverend Jeremiah Porter, in November of 1835. The first building that they would call their own was located on Main Street near Madison Avenue. One of the church's passions was the anti-slavery movement. Moses Pettengill, teacher, merchant, manufacturer, philanthropist, and social reformer, was not only a community leader, but a powerful voice in the abolitionist movement. He and his wife Lucy lent their support to a number of anti-slavery societies in their lifetime. Their home at Liberty and Jefferson Streets served as a station in the Underground Railroad. In the summer of 1844, Abraham Lincoln spoke from the pulpit of the little church on Main Street. Because of the strong passions over slavery and divisions within the Presbyterian Church over the issue, on October 27, 1847, the congregation voted to become the Main Street Congregational Church. A new house of worship was dedicated in July of 1852. In 1857, a bell was installed in its steeple. This bell, which survived the fire of 1936, was well known throughout the city of Peoria, for it was rung each time there was a Union victory during the American Civil War. It was during this time that Robert Ingersoll, the lawyer and great orator, found himself so impressed by the witness of the Main Street Congregational Church that he rented a pew. In April of 1865, news arrived that the Great War had ended. Hearing the news that the Union had been saved, noted abolitionist Mark Aiken rushed to the church and rang the bell so vigorously that it cracked. The bell was recast in 1870 with the motto of Liberty and God the Defender stamped into it. Today that bell sits in front of the church on Florence Street. With the merger of the Main Street Congregational Church and Fulton Street Presbyterian Church, a new church home was constructed on the corner of Hamilton and Monroe. This Gothic-styled church, with its richly carved black walnut interior, was called the Protestant Cathedral of Central Illinois. Education and mission were dear to the heart of First Congregational Church. As early as 1852, references to a Sunday school began to appear in the congregation's records. By 1872, an infants class was established, along with a Sunday school library. By 1877, 22 teachers were in charge of classes grouped according to age, from infant to adult. The Sunday school was called the Living, Moving Power of the Church. Efforts were made to establish mission Sunday schools in various parts of Peoria. The congregation also had a long history of local and international mission support. An example of this home and foreign mission work was seen through a Chinese Sunday school program that met regularly in the church building. Begun in 1890 as a mission outreach to Chinese immigrants generally employed in the community's laundries, it provided tutors teaching men how to read. The evening of March 21, 1936, forever changed the landscape of Peoria. Not only was the First Congregational Church completely destroyed, but the fire also gutted Shrine Temple, now known as the Riverside Community Church. One chapter in our community's history closed, but another was about to be written. To God be the glory.